Most people who walk away from Matt's off-road recovery do it quietly. But when TomTom disappeared from the channel in late 2023, fans noticed immediately. Because Tom wasn't just a cast member. He was the guy who built the show, the rigs, the channel setup, the fabrication work that made MORR what it became. Tom's fingerprints were on all of it. But here's what most fans never knew. Before any of that, Maddock spent nearly 2 decades working on nuclear reactors. Before that, he was evaluating equipment for nuclear missiles at Boeing. This wasn't just a guy who was good with a welder. This was someone with a career most people only see in movies. And he traded it all for a YouTube channel in Hurricane, Utah. So what really happened to TomTom? The answer is more interesting than anyone expected. If you only knew TomTom from the channel, you knew him as the quiet one. The guy in the background who could weld something together on the spot, diagnose a mechanical problem in minutes, and build a recovery rig from the ground up without breaking a sweat. Fans loved him for that, but almost none of them knew what he had been doing for the 20 years before he ever set foot in Matt's shop. His real name is Tom Maddock, and his resume reads like something out of a government clearance file. According to fan records compiled over the years, Tom holds a master's degree in physics and a separate degree in nuclear engineering, both earned at the University of Utah, where he studied through the early 2000s. That combination alone puts him in a very small category of people. Nuclear engineering isn't a field you stumble into. It requires a deep understanding of reactor physics, radiation behavior, materials science, and systems design. Tom didn't just pass through it. He built a career on it. Right out of university, he landed at Boeing Defense Systems, where he spent roughly 2 years as a systems engineer. His work there involved evaluating electronic and mechanical equipment for use in the Minuteman ICBM program, one of the United States' core nuclear deterrent weapons. That's not a job that gets handed to just anyone. It requires precision, security clearance, and the kind of technical mind that can hold an enormous amount of detailed information and apply it under pressure. From Boeing, Tom moved into the world of nuclear research. He joined the Idaho National Laboratory, the U.S. Department of Energy's primary nuclear energy research facility, and stayed there for nearly 17 years. His work covered a significant range of responsibilities. Early in his tenure, he was designing and testing components built to survive extreme environments inside hot cells, shielded enclosures used to handle highly radioactive materials. Later, he moved into large-scale research projects involving neutron radiography and the Advanced Test Reactor, one of the most powerful research reactors in the world. Eventually, Tom transitioned into project management, overseeing equipment installation and managing complex engineering programs from start to finish. By any measure, this was a serious, accomplished career, the kind most people spend their entire working lives building and protecting. And then he walked away from it and moved to Utah to help his childhood friend pull stuck Jeeps out of the sand. That decision says everything you need to know about Tom Maddock. To understand why Tom Maddock gave up a 17-year engineering career at one of the most advanced nuclear research facilities in the country, you have to go back to where it all started. Long before YouTube, long before MORR, and long before anyone outside of Hurricane, Utah had ever heard of Matt Wetzel. Tom and Matt grew up together. Matt has said publicly that he's been using Tom as a sounding board for his ideas since 1995. That's not a recent friendship. That's a nearly 30-year relationship built on trust, shared history, and the kind of honest back and forth that most people spend their whole lives looking for. When Matt had an idea, whether it was about business, vehicles, or eventually YouTube, Tom was the guy he called. But for a long time, geography kept them apart. While Matt stayed rooted in southern Utah, building his recovery business and eventually his towing operation, Tom's career had taken him north to Idaho. The Idaho National Laboratory is based in Idaho Falls, about 7 hours from Hurricane, and for the better part of 2 decades, Tom's life was centered there. He and Matt stayed in contact, but according to what's been documented about their friendship, Tom would only see Matt occasionally during those years. 2 people on completely different paths, staying connected across the distance. Then Matt started a YouTube channel. The channel launched in March of 2019, and it grew faster than almost anyone anticipated. What started as a straightforward recovery documentation project quickly turned into something much larger, a full production operation with a crew, vehicles, fabrication work, and a fan base that kept growing week after week. Matt needed people around him who he could trust completely, people who could work hard, think on their feet, and bring real skills to the table. Tom was the obvious call. Before long, Tom had made the move from Idaho to Utah, trading the controlled environment of a federal research facility for the unpredictable world of off-road recovery. He didn't come in as a background figure either. From the early days of the channel, Tom was hands-on, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes, helping Matt shape what MORR was going to become. It was a decision that surprised some people, but anyone who understood the friendship between these two men knew it made complete sense. When Matt needed him, Tom showed up. He always had. That was just who Tom Maddock was. When Tom Maddock arrived in Hurricane, Utah, he didn't ease into things. From the moment he joined the operation, he was doing what he'd always done, solving problems, building things, and making himself indispensable. Except now, instead of managing experiments inside a federal research reactor, he was in Matt's shop with a welder in his hand and a recovery rig that needed work. And the work was serious. Tom had a hand in building all three of Matt's primary recovery vehicles: the Banana, the MORR, and the Heavy Wrecker. For anyone unfamiliar with the channel, these aren't just trucks. They are purpose-built machines, each one engineered and fabricated specifically to handle the kind of extreme terrain and impossible recovery situations that MORR is known for. The Banana is Matt's iconic 2001 Jeep Cherokee XJ, the vehicle that started everything, and one that has been through countless upgrades and a full overhaul. The MORR is a completely custom build. The Heavy Wrecker, which Matt controversially calls the world's largest off-road wrecker, is a custom-built monster with a cab sourced from a 1956 International Harvester fire truck and enough power and hardware to pull vehicles out of situations that would stop anything else cold. Tom also played a key role in recovering the Golden Nugget, a vintage 1970s Suzuki LJ40 belonging to Ed, one of the channel's most beloved characters, which had to be extracted from Ed's gold claim out in California. That recovery became one of the more memorable moments in the channel's early run. But Tom's contribution to MORR went beyond the physical builds. He also worked directly with Matt in setting up the YouTube channel itself. That detail tends to get overlooked, but it matters. The infrastructure behind a channel like Matt's off-road recovery, the systems, the workflow, the way content gets produced and organized, doesn't build itself. Tom was in the room when those foundations were being laid. What made all of this remarkable was the range it required. One day he was fabricating suspension components. The next he was troubleshooting a recovery gone sideways in real time. His background in systems engineering and project management meant he approached every problem methodically, but his hands-on skills meant he could execute the solution himself without waiting on anyone else. For a channel built on the idea that anything can be fixed if you're smart enough and determined enough, Tom Maddock was almost a walking embodiment of the whole premise. He didn't just work for MORR. In a very real sense, he helped build it. There's a particular kind of person who becomes a fan favorite on YouTube without really trying. They're not the loudest voice in the room. They don't chase the camera or play up moments for reaction. They just show up, do the work, and let what they're capable of speak for itself. That was TomTom in a nutshell, and it's exactly why the MORR audience connected with him the way they did. From the outside, Tom could seem understated. He wasn't the one cracking jokes every 5 minutes or delivering the big dramatic lines when a recovery went sideways. But viewers who paid attention quickly realized that Tom was almost always the person in the frame who actually knew what was happening. When a build decision needed to be made, people looked to Tom. When something mechanical wasn't behaving the way it should, Tom was already 3 steps ahead of the problem. That kind of quiet competence has a way of earning respect that no amount of camera personality ever could. His fabrication skills were a big part of it. Welding and metalwork are things a lot of people in the off-road world can do at a basic level, but Tom operated at a different standard entirely. Viewers who had any background in fabrication or engineering could see it immediately. The precision, the approach, the way he thought through a build before committing to it. It wasn't hobbyist-level work. It was the output of someone who had spent decades training their hands and their mind to work together at a high level. But it wasn't all technical. Tom was also just genuinely likable on screen. There was an authenticity to him that audiences responded to. No performance, no pretense, just a real person doing real work alongside people he actually cared about. The dynamic between Tom and the rest of the MORR crew felt natural because it was. These weren't strangers thrown together for content. They were people with real history, and that came through every time Tom appeared on screen. Over time, he built a following of his own. Fans who started watching for Matt stayed for the whole crew, and Tom became one of the names that kept people coming back. Comment sections filled up with viewers asking about him, praising his builds, and pointing out moments where his expertise had quietly saved a recovery from going completely off the rails. He never asked for that attention, but he earned every bit of it. And when he was gone, people noticed the gap immediately. By mid-2023, something significant was already in motion behind the scenes. After nearly 17 years as a systems engineer at the Idaho National Laboratory, Tom Maddock officially ended his tenure there in July of that year. A career that had taken him from Boeing defense work to federal nuclear research, through hot cells, reactor experiments, and large-scale project management, was closing its final chapter. For most people, that alone would represent one of the biggest transitions of their adult life. But Tom wasn't finished making changes. A few months later, in late 2023, Tom stepped away from Matt's off-road recovery as well. For fans who had watched him become one of the most respected and recognizable figures on the channel, the news landed hard. There had been no obvious warning signs on camera, no visible tension, no dramatic moment that pointed toward an exit. One of MORR's most integral cast members was simply gone, and the audience immediately started asking questions. The speculation that follows any departure from a popular channel can get out of hand quickly. Viewers filled comment sections with theories, and some corners of the fan base assumed the worst: a falling out between old friends, a disagreement behind the scenes, something that wasn't being said publicly. That kind of rumor tends to build momentum in online communities, especially when answers aren't immediately forthcoming. But Tom addressed it himself. In a YouTube video, he spoke directly about the departure and made two things very clear. First, he and Matt were still friends. The relationship that had been built over nearly 3 decades was intact. There was no falling out, no bad blood, and no hidden story that fans were being kept away from. Second, the reason he left was straightforward. He was focusing on his own business. That business was TomTom's shop, the channel which Tom had started to document his own builds and fabrication projects outside of MORR, had been quietly growing alongside his work on the main channel. With welding, off-road builds, and metalwork at its core, it was a natural extension of everything Tom had been doing for years, except now he was doing it entirely on his own terms. His Instagram, under the same name, had already built a following of over 26,000 people, and his Facebook page had accumulated close to 32,000 likes. In the same year that he walked away from a 17-year engineering career, Tom Maddock also walked away from one of the most watched off-road channels on YouTube. He didn't do it because something went wrong. He did it because something felt right. Walking away from a channel with hundreds of millions of views isn't something most people would do voluntarily. But Tom Maddock had never been the kind of person who made decisions based on what looked impressive from the outside. He made them based on what actually made sense. And by the time late 2023 arrived, building something of his own made more sense than anything else. TomTom's shop had been in the works for a while before it became his full focus. The channel started as a side project, a place where Tom could document his personal builds and fabrication work without the constraints of someone else's production schedule or content demands. Anyone who followed it from early on could see that it wasn't a vanity project. The quality of the work was immediately apparent, and the audience that found it knew exactly what they were looking at. With Tom fully committed to the channel after leaving MORR, the content shifted into a higher gear. The builds documented on TomTom's shop reflect exactly the kind of work that made him stand out during his time on Matt's channel: detailed, methodical, and executed at a standard that most backyard fabricators can only aim for. Jeep XJ work, off-road builds, welding projects. The channel covers the full range of what Tom is capable of, with no time limits and no recovery jobs pulling him away from a build mid-process. His social media presence has continued to grow alongside it. The Instagram account he runs under the TomTom's shop name had crossed 26,000 followers, with over 300 posts documenting everything from finished builds to in-progress shop work. His Facebook page was sitting at close to 32,000 likes, a following built almost entirely off the strength of the work itself, rather than any manufactured drama or viral moments. What's striking about where Tom landed is how consistent it is with everything he's always been. He spent 17 years as an engineer because he was genuinely good at building and solving complex problems. He joined MORR because his oldest friend needed someone who could do exactly that. And he left when the opportunity came to do it entirely on his own terms, on his own projects, with no deadlines except the ones he set for himself. There's no mystery to it once you understand who Tom Maddock actually is. He's not someone who chases the spotlight. He's someone who chases the craft. And right now, in a shop somewhere in Utah, that's exactly what he's doing. Tom Maddock's story doesn't fit the template people expect when they go looking for YouTube drama. There's no falling out, no controversy, no moment where everything imploded on camera. What there is instead is something a lot more interesting. A man who built an extraordinary life not once, but 3 times over. First as an engineer working on some of the most advanced nuclear technology in the world, then as a core member of one of YouTube's most watched off-road channels, and now as someone building exactly what he wants entirely on his own terms. The fans who miss him on MORR aren't wrong to feel that absence. Tom brought something to that channel that's genuinely hard to replace, a combination of technical brilliance, quiet authenticity, and decades of real-world experience that showed up in everything he touched. But TomTom's shop is proof that leaving something great doesn't always mean stepping backward. Sometimes it means finally having the space to show everything you're actually capable of. Not every story ends with drama. Some of them end with a guy in a shop, doing the work he loves, answering to nobody. And honestly, that might be the best ending of all.